Thank you so much for everyone joining today. This is awesome. So many people. All right, if we're ready to get started. Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Joe, one of the student moderators for today's advisory council session. I'm a senior here at the College of Charleston, studying communication and marketing. Again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day today to join us for this session. We'll be leveling up your resume, LinkedIn, and your personal brand. So be sure to have your resume on hand or maybe a notepad, as this session will be extremely valuable for those looking to leverage their talent and capitalize on potential opportunities through LinkedIn. Just a notice before we get started, for those in the chat, please do not hesitate to post a question in the chat. We'll have some time after some initial topic discussion devoted just to Q&A, so feel free to submit a question there and we'll be sure to answer it. Now, I'm happy to introduce our advisory council members for today's session. First, we have Gina Stufer. She is the president of Lou Hammond Group in the Charleston office. Stufer has been with the firm for over 22 years. Next is Tiara Straub, who is the council chair of the advisory council and also the executive director for Russell Reynolds Associates. Thirdly, we have Kat Blomquist. She has 25 years of experience of strategic communications experience in the corporate, government, legal, nonprofit, and political sectors. Kat recently started her own business, which was Guard Hill Communications. And fourthly, we have Carrie Kurlander. She is the Vice President of External Communications for Chick-fil-A. Like I said, thank you so much for taking your time, as your insight will be valuable for all who are here today. Before I move on, is there anything I left off that you would like me to add, or that you would like to add yourself and share? For any of the advisory council members? Nope. Awesome. Okay. So to start, we'll take a few minutes for each panelist to respond briefly to the topics of today's session, whether that be LinkedIn, personal branding, or resume. So now I'll hand it off to any of the panelists that would like to start.
I'm happy to start since you named me first. So hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm here in the Charleston office, very close to the College of Charleston. So I've had the pleasure of meeting some of you and have hired some of you to work in our office. As far as resume is concerned, I think highlighting your internships, all of your experience is more important than including your GPA. I think linking to a portfolio is great, or to your personal website is great, because I'm really looking for people who have had work experience and have checked out some other agencies or other communications groups, so they have something to compare us with. So a lot of my interviews are conversational, and when people have that experience and they can talk through those times and projects that they've worked on, other activities, that always helps that process. Also on LinkedIn, a lot of times some people's the headshots aren't professional shots, they're more lifestyle shots or glamour shots. So the more professional that you can be with your headshots on your LinkedIn profiles, I think is a plus as well.
Hey, I don't mind jumping in on one of your points there, Gina, and I'm sure, I think we're holding questions till the end. But to the point about showing stuff that you've worked on, as someone who's just entering the workforce, you want to be sure that the person has a baseline set of skills to do some fundamental things like writing a press release and that sort of thing. So to the extent that you have a few of those, and I'm sure you've heard this a million times, but you have a little portfolio like that, I think it's very helpful. And I just wanted to add that I'm still using something like that today. My resume includes both external work and doing stuff in politics, and I'm an attorney, but I also really enjoy and have a lot of experience doing employee communications and engagement. And examples of that include working on the values of a company and putting together a video about that, different initiatives that I've kicked off at companies. And so it's really hard to kind of paint a picture through a resume of those types of things and to really show that I am this multi-dimensional person. So I do have like a bit of a portfolio that I will send along with my resume, even at this late stage of my career. So anyway.
I'm happy to jump in addition to what's already been said, I'm assuming that everybody's done their own sort of personal research and gotten advice on how to structure the resume, but I'm always surprised to see sort of a chronological backwards looking story on the resume. And my encouragement to you is to lead with most recent and most relevant to your ideal position. So right up at the top, I want to understand your razzle dazzle experiences with some specificity, not too many words, that speaks most directly to the position that I am seeking to hire, which means you may need to tweak your resume from time to time, depending upon the position that you're applying for. So recent and relevant, number one. Number two, make sure you get an editor. It's sad to say, but jobs are so competitive that if there's a typo or misspelling or grammatical error or anything that is less than perfection, because it's so competitive and you are applying in the field of communications, the expectation is perfection. And any little misplaced comma or wrong spelling will get you tossed out because there are just too many things to compete for. I'm also interested in a story that demonstrates initiative. So there's one thing to have sort of a loaded up resume of experience, but if there are just key ways of demonstrating that you are a person of initiative, that you're not waiting to be directed, that you understand how to get her done. I'll give you an example of that. I once hired someone sight unseen, because I could tell by her resume, just her resume, that she was one of 11 children. She was working 3 jobs to put herself through college. So that in and of itself gave me in one page a story that helped me understand this is a person with a high work ethic and high initiative. And that's super valuable in the workplace. And the final thing with LinkedIn, I would say, LinkedIn is really more about quality than quantity. It's not a race to try to accumulate 500 plus connections. If you have 50 or less connections that are high quality, that's more beneficial to you than if you have 500 plus, you've accumulated, but nobody, it's not quality or relevant to what you're doing. So I'll stop there.
I agree with everything that Carrie, Gina, and Kat have said. My perspective is slightly different in that I am not a communications practitioner, but I recruit communications practitioners. And so I spend time all day, every day looking at resumes, looking at LinkedIn's, and I can tell you that I probably devote more time than most will because it is my job, my full-time job. But typically when you are applying for roles, you're going to get someone, an HR professional that is spread too thin, or a hiring manager that can only dedicate a short amount of time to review applications. And so I think that first impression is so incredibly important. And LinkedIn is your front door. That is your doorstep. You have your picture. You should put an engaging background picture. You should make sure that everything is accurate, that is detailed, and it makes you stand out in some sort of way. Carrie also used the word story. And I think telling your own story is incredibly important. What do you want people to know about you? How do you do that in a compelling way? And it is, and I say this all the time, I talk to communications people or marketing people or advocacy experts, and use your skills on yourself. And it is put modesty to the side for a minute and brag about yourself. What is impressive about what you've done? What did you accomplish? How is it relevant? And use a strong active verb that demonstrates that you are really adding value and doing great work and not just passively doing whatever is required of you and doing the bare minimum. And I think really trying to figure out how you creatively position yourself. And the other thing I'll say, and this is super tactical, but on LinkedIn, I mean, for a lot of roles, if someone's seeking things out, they're looking for keywords. And so make sure that the keywords, it's pretty standard search engine optimization stuff. Make sure that the keywords that you want people to find you for are in your profile, whether that's volunteer, whether it's work, whether it's an internship, and also check the box that says I'm open to opportunities and say exactly what you're looking for, because those keywords help too. And that'll put you right to the top of the queue when a recruiter is looking for your stuff.
TR, can I ask you a question that might be helpful to the folks here? I'm a big fan of having a summary at the top of one's resume that is basically, just a synopsis of who you are. One, do you think that's a good idea? And two, at this stage, coming out of college, is it better to have like who I am and what I've done in that paragraph? Or is it one of those paragraphs where it's like, looking for a role in the communications field, blah, blah, blah.
So I think especially earlier in your career, when you don't have a ton of track record of success, I would say it should be a little bit of both. I would say you call out what your background and experience is, and play it up, right? Like no one looking at someone that is coming out of school is expecting you to have 10 years of experience. And so just be clear about what you've done, whether it is you're interested in employee communications or branding or media relations or public affairs. Put those keywords in there so that they jump out when someone is looking at it. And also be clear about what you want to do. And I think that at this stage in your career too, you can be open and honest. It's not like you have to be covert looking for a job in hiding in most cases, unless you're currently employed full time and you're looking for something else. So I would say, just like short to the point, if I see a big paragraph, I'm not going to read through it to try to pull out the key points, make them pop.
Oh, those are all very good points. We have a lot of questions coming in through the chat that I wanted to get to. And the first one from McKenna, I feel it kind of goes back to what Carrie said in terms of tweaking your resume for every job. And she asked about cover letters and if they're necessary and what should you include in them. And this is for anybody. I thought it related back to like tweaking your resume per every job.
I mean, for me, cover letters are important, and that's where you can really be personalized and show that you've done your research on the company that, you're looking to work for us. We could tell that you've been on our website or our social media channels and have seen some of the work that we've done recently. So I like cover letters. I don't like them too casual because we haven't met before. So professional, but personalized, I would say.
Gotcha.
I agree. And I would say that I don't get to the cover letter if I can't get past the resume. And so I would say resume first and foremost. And then if I am interested in the experience, then I'll dig in and I want to understand the nuance behind it, why you're interested, how it ties to this. And it can add color, but it's not, I would call like the resume or LinkedIn is sort of like the gate that I have to get through to then be interested enough to read the resume for myself personally. And this is one of those things too. I think different people have different perspectives about the importance of it. And I would err on the side of assuming that someone is going to pay attention to the cover letter, because if they do and you don't do a great job on it, then you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. And it's just like, if you're going to do something, do it well. And so don't just do a rote cover letter, because it can end up being more of a detriment than a benefit, in my opinion.
Thank you for that. That's new. That's new. I didn't think about that way either. I thought usually the cover letter was like the first thing employers looked at, but that's an interesting perspective. Carrie, did you have anything to add to that?
Ditto. Everything that's been said.
Awesome. Oh, Kat, anything on that?
Sorry. Just the topic of cover letter, which goes into the next question. So maybe it's a good segue about whether you should be creative or a little more professional. And Gina mentioned being professional, but I also think it's what type of organization you're applying to. If it's a creative agency type of atmosphere, perhaps they want to see some of that creativity. But if it's a more staid, formal environment, stick to a safer, formal style.
Gotcha. All right. So for our next question from April, we have, what do you suggest that we put into our portfolios? Anyone can start with that.
So, think about the job you're applying for and, tell the story through your resume, your portfolios, that most articulates the job that you most want. If it's too old, unless it's remarkable or had special distinction, you might make sure that you argue for it to stay rather than, or argue, make sure that of everything that you have, if it's older, that there's a good argument for keeping it in. An example of that is if you're graduating if you're 22 years old and graduating, you might not want to have sophomore high school, art award winner, unless there was some sort of incredible distinction or something that is relevant to the job that you're applying to.
Our focus is on media relations. That's primarily what we do, at least in this office. So people that have a portfolio showing, examples of press releases and pitches and how that translated into results during internships are always welcomed.
Another thing I might add as I'm thinking, you are digital natives, and more and more there are skills that you naturally have that you may not even realize you have that are valuable to a potential employer. So if there is, I would be super interested if I understood that you were that your content on social was especially compelling. I'd be interested in transferring that into my own team, and just think about what your I hate to say generation, but what your generation is better at than the people who are 5-10 years ahead of you in the workplace.
Yeah, I was thinking, it's so funny, like back in the old days when I was first putting resumes together, everyone put on their skills that they knew how to use, like Microsoft Word and things like that, which obviously I don't know if it's kind of dated to do that sort of thing. But I do think that if one is particularly adept at PowerPoint, it's just everywhere. We can't get away from it, but it's a wonderful skill to bring with you. And I think a lot of employers would appreciate knowing or seeing your capabilities there.
Yeah, so along with that, and we talked about a lot about portfolios, resumes, and how that adds to your LinkedIn. I just wanted to ask, what advice would you give to aspiring young professionals that are looking to establish their brand through LinkedIn? Other things they can do on their profile that'll really differentiate themselves when employers come by and are looking for a candidate.
The first thing that comes to mind for me is that it's all a part of sort of like creating the ecosystem around yourself that you want to reinforce your brand. And so of course you're going to put your volunteer experience, you should put your work experience, if you have an internship, if you have leadership roles and like extracurricular organizations, and including keywords and things like that. I would also say that you should follow people that you're interested in on LinkedIn. You should share content, whether it's content that you created or that others created, that reinforce your brand and show that you have an interest. Comment on things. Make them substantive, make them meaningful, because that'll show up in your feed. It's sort of about creating a little bit of a content drumbeat that reinforces what you want to be known for. So it shows that you are engaged, and I think it also just demonstrates a level of digital fluency. That you understand how to use a platform like LinkedIn.
Thank you. No, that was really insightful. I really appreciate that. Another question just came in here from Alexandra. Sorry, it's Callie's came in for, but what would you say is the best format to follow for resumes and key things to focus on? Would you suggest bullet points when listing or sticking to descriptive sentences? Anyone can.
On resumes, bullet points are better for me with the action verbs and that TR was talking about earlier.
And less is more, not too skinny, but argue the words in, and bullet format is easy on the eyes.
Gotcha. And yeah, sorry, Alexandra, I didn't mean to skip over you there, but her question was, could you make your portfolio on PowerPoint, or is there a more professional way to present this?
I've seen them on PowerPoint, even Dropbox with links to work is fine with me. A lot of times I'll be, if we have an interview or a phone interview, I like to hear people present their portfolios to see how they talk about the work and experiences that they had.
Gotcha. Another question from Sydney. As for the timeline and applying for jobs, what is the appropriate time frame to begin applying for communication and full-time positions such as marketing and social media, PR, etc.? So what would be a good timeline to start applying to those type of jobs, if there is one?
So I think there are two things here. One is, I mean, for Chick-fil-A, our internships are interviewed for and done and offered by winter break. So it's always interesting to me when I get outreach in, April, May, asking about internships for the summer, because it's already baked. So, but then the flip side of that is availability. So if you're looking, if you are applying for something, but you're not available for 6 or 8 more months, then that's a waste of everybody's time too.
Thank you for that. That's actually
I think
really...
there's like a PR firm I worked for in New York City. We had a program for young professionals, and I believe that the planning for that, or when that thing was baked, was probably more in the spring. So I don't think it's too early to start putting together a list with dates of deadlines of types of programs that you can apply for. But in terms of applying for jobs themselves, jobs sometimes take a long time to get. Maybe not so much at a junior level, but some companies work kind of slow. So it may not be the worst thing to start a little bit earlier. And if it takes 6 weeks to get through the application process, that's already a month and a half. And if you can't start for another month, I think that's pretty acceptable. So I wouldn't shy away from a few months out getting pretty active.
Yeah, totally agree with that. That's you do need to allow some lead time, but if you're applying and that you are midway through your junior year and you're applying for a full-time that's starting, then you wouldn't want to do that.
Right. For us as an agency, we're always, we call it building our bench of talent. And so, we have we have a mailbox for resumes, and we're always looking at those and talking to people on the phone and doing some interviews, because sometimes with an agency life, piece of business will come in and we need to be, staffing up right away. So we just brought in someone this week that moved from New York in October, and I've been chatting with her since October, and then we were finally able to pull the trigger now. So it's good to, when that you're available, to go ahead and get your resume in, because there may be something sooner or later.
Interesting.
I think the only addition I would make here is that for full-time roles, it's, I think, tends to be a shorter timetable, but for internships, those applications can start 6 to 9 months out for organizations that are bringing in interns in a cohort. And so you could have that firmed up 6 months before the internship actually starts. And so that's an instance where I think starting sooner rather than later makes a ton of sense. And so if you're looking at internships that you'd like to do this summer, you should be, in my opinion, applying now, if not sooner. But we can't travel back in time, so now.
Gotcha. All right, so another question here from Alexandra. She asked if there is like an unwritten rule for how long a resume should be. Should it be 1 page, or could it be even like 1.5 pages to 2? Just one?
So 1 page. If you are a phenom and you have already done amazing things in your life and you need to spill it onto 2 pages, then by all means go for it. But I would be, in which case you probably don't even need a resume. If you have enough accomplishments to put on 2 pages at this stage in your career, you probably don't even need a resume. So I would say keep it to 1 page and really focus on the most impactful content.
Gotcha. All right, so another question that I had is a common roadblock that I hear from my peers on LinkedIn is that they can't grow their network, or they don't know how, or get more connections. Are there any resources you guys could talk to that could help people grow their networks on LinkedIn?
I mean, for us, there's different networking groups to join. So, I mean, that would be one way of looking into it, whether it's more of, you know, a PR or communications field, or even an industry that you're interested in. That could be something to check out.
I think also starting with, like, you know, check with your parents. Do they know people in the industry? Would they be willing to have an informational conversation with you? After that conversation, perhaps you become linked with that person on LinkedIn and they've given you a couple other names. So I would be looking for opportunities to have conversations with people, and then they'll become part of your LinkedIn network, rather than just sort of expanding the LinkedIn network, you know, digitally. I mean, try to have those live conversations.
I like that. So I want to talk to that a little bit. So once you connect with these people, what would you suggest to someone looking to reach out, like, and follow up with these people that they're connecting with, like in terms of like a messaging strategy?
Well, thank you notes after you have a conversation is always good. And I think, you know, asking, we talked about this yesterday in the classroom visit, you know, asking for someone's opinion it's pretty easy for people to give an opinion. You're not asking them to get you a job, and everyone opinion. So ask someone for their opinion. And you might even say, you know, is there anyone else you think I should speak with? And they might, you know, think about, listen, you should really talk to Bob. And, you know, they'll send an email to Bob and introduce the two of you. And so maybe you and Bob can have a conversation, and that'll lead to more discussions with other people. But, you know, if you're having a substantive conversation, you can feel like that is a quality contact on LinkedIn, who later on, if you're looking for a job and you see that this person knows someone at that company where you're looking, you're not going to feel weird reaching out to them and saying, hey, it's me. Remember we talked last year and I saw that you blah, blah, blah. So I think just trying to have some real substance behind the conversations before that, you know, that's what's going to make them a useful LinkedIn contact. And, you know, it doesn't even have to be a professional group. Of course, you got the College of Charleston Advisory Council, but, you know, start with your inner circle, with your aunts, your uncles, and older siblings, etc.
That's great advice. Yeah. One last question. We're coming to the end of our time here from Olivia. She said, after applying for a position, do you recommend reaching out to the hiring manager on LinkedIn as an extra step, or no?
I think my opinion is that as long as it is a professional, like well-crafted note as a follow-up, and sort of breezy in a way, like I think indicating interest, but being professional and personable about it, I don't see it as a bad thing. I think it shows initiative. I think you just don't want to put them on the spot.
Very nice. All right. So that has almost come to the end of our time here. Thank you so much for all the panelists taking the time out, answering questions. I'm sure people were able to, you were able to provide a lot of insight, a lot of valuable insight for everyone that joined the call today. And thank you for the audience for showing up as well. I also hope you were able to find something of value, and we wish you all good luck.
Thank you. Great moderator.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.